Welcome to Determine Out Loud, our podcast series that's all about minding your business in contract management and source to pay. And now, your host, Buyers Meeting Point owner, Kelly Varner.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this latest episode of Determine Out Loud. Today, my guest is Tim Scott, one of Determine's business consultant managers. Welcome, Tim.
Hi, Kelly. How are you doing today?
Just fine. I'm so glad you could join us. And in fact, today, we're going to talk about one of the capabilities that companies often take for granted in their sourcing platforms, and that's the cloud. We've all gotten so used to everything being in the cloud that we've really stopped thinking about what it actually means for the business and what kinds of things it makes possible from a technology and process standpoint. So when you're having conversations about working with a cloud-based solution, what do you usually list out as the top advantages?
Yeah, I think with most of our clients, what we see as far as the advantages of cloud, it kind of comes down to standardizing their processes, whether that's for control or for compliance type purposes. We see it around a lot of access and visibility, standardization, and really just keep everything kind of clean within there. I think a lot of the top level people we talk to are looking more for the reporting and KPIs. So to get in and get that quick access they need to really see what's going on and kind of be able to make their conclusions as they need to. But I think what's often most overlooked is really kind of the ease of use for both our internal clients and for their third-party providers that they're partnering with. I think trying to create as much of a frictionless access and ease of use for the tool for both parties is critical to not only kind of maximizing results, but also to really seeing the full benefits the cloud can provide.
So it's interesting that you talk about this idea of reducing the friction. And I think from a technology standpoint, the corporate buyers and users that procurement now supports and interacts with, they're so much more sophisticated than they used to be, I think largely because e-commerce is so prevalent from a B2C perspective, that there's this expectation that you're going to have, like you said, a frictionless buying experience. But from your perspective in talking to whether it's procurement or stakeholders or suppliers, what does that friction look like when it's actually taking place within a business?
I think it's any time that you're creating a lot of extra work for people to try and answer what's hopefully, a simple question or a simple problem. If you say something simple within the sourcing process is trying to run an RFI, it's kind of like the Excel Olympics to try and get everything completed and done. Whereas these cloud solutions really allow, your third parties to be able to log into a solution, to be able to answer quickly and easily, to share usually information across different parts of their business to get the answers they need. And then it allows our clients to really be able to take those answers, compare them easily. You're not splicing 5 and 6 to 10 different suppliers' information together to make sure it's all on one page. You can generally just export all those out and see a true comparison of how your third parties compare against one another.
So that's certainly sort of the first line of procurement from let's say a customer service perspective, right? Being able to make things accessible, bring things together and streamline. But in terms of bringing all of this information together into one place, do you see additional benefits for procurement itself? What are the additional things that they can accomplish, whether it involves knowledge retention or whether it enables them to do different kinds of analytical work? What else does it make possible that friction is down, adoption is up, and more data is really flowing through a centralized location?
Yeah, I think we definitely live in the world of kind of big data, and I think there's the kind of the baseline of just the attrition of people as people kind of come and go from an organization. You run an annual sourcing event, and the person who ran that event may not be there this year versus next year. When you have things that are stored centrally inside of a cloud-based tool, you're able to basically log in, see what suppliers were invited, how they performed, what supplier you awarded to. You're able to follow maybe contracts and also the performance of that supplier over that year to see if that's the right supplier to still invite to your process, to next year's annual sourcing event or wherever you're running. I think that anytime you're able to really leverage and see everything that's gone on, how that supplier has both performed in the RFI and if they were awarded, and really use that data to make the best possible decision for what's going on in your business right now. The ability to kind of harness your past data and your past successes are huge, along with kind of avoiding your past failures.
And that's something that we all want to do, right? There's no need to make the same mistakes over and over again.
No, absolutely. I think the cost of repeating your mistake is huge.
Absolutely. Now, we've talked about a frictionless user experience, but if we think about that sort of from a planning perspective and look at it instead of having an overall frictionless workflow that includes, right, technology usability, intuitive centralization of information, sort of the overall positive experience for everyone that's interacting in the cloud. What actually needs to happen for that information that gets created and centralized because of the reduced friction to offer continued value? Is there sort of a circular economy where because you have more data being centralized and more activity being centralized, you can then achieve and accomplish even different things throughout procurement's end-to-end process?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that we definitely have seen, our clients within determined specifically that have more than one module or that take part in the full onboarding, sourcing, contracting, and procurement of the PO to invoice process. I mean, the more data that you're gathering and collecting one time and applying it across multiple modules, the better clarity, the better visibility, and also the more compliant and the less at risk you are. It's almost as important to have all of your data in one centralized location for all those modules, because the last thing you want is to have a sourcing event where you award for $1,000, and then when it gets switched to a different system or a different module for the contracting piece, you're starting from scratch entering that data, which is time consuming, and then also you may not get the exact same terms transferred from one part to the next. What we've seen our vendors really, our clients really kind of take advantage of our system is when they're able to combine and have both together and transfer over all the pertinent metadata from one module to the next, and also carry over the correct pricing and terms. And then when it comes to the PO standpoint, they can then basically administer against the contract effectively and ensure that they're doing their POs on the right schedule, paying them out appropriately, and you don't have any lost money or any revenue, and all that extra time that you save, you're able to be more productive doing other things outside the tool.
And it's interesting because what we're really talking about is sort of the integration of information end to end. I think we're lucky. We used to talk about integration a lot more because there was increased sort of plugging together systems either behind the curtain or under the hood, however you want to look at it. And now things are a lot more seamless. There's less integration from a technology standpoint, but maybe just as much from a process standpoint, because now you're trying to integrate people and functions and processes on the same technology, which becomes an enabler. And in this area, no conversation would be complete if we didn't talk about automation. And I don't mean robots, right? We're not doing the Amazon warehouse approach to sourcing and exchanging documents. But if we think about what technology can actually do for us rather than what it can just hold for us, because all of that information is centralized, what becomes possible when all of the information is housed in the same place?
Yeah, I think a great example to harp back on the last one there was, when you look at if you onboard a supplier, you run that supplier through a sourcing event and you go to create the contract. When you go to create your contract, if it's all in one location, you're able to pull in the supplier information, whether it be address, name, address, maybe a contact, any other kind of pertinent details that are kind of go part of the description part of that contract. You're able to pull over all the items, any of the terms and conditions that come over that are applicable from that sourcing event. And then you're not having to go through and recreate, retype, redo all those things all over again. You're able to really kind of automate a lot of the request process that may have been part of what you had to do when you create the contract, and it's all sitting there. And you're able to just more or less review, ensure for correctness, and you're ensure for the fact that you're able to go through and build a proper contract and focus on getting everything set up from there just by utilizing the data that you already have inside the tool.
It's actually pretty amazing, all of the things that are possible now. We've gotten so spoiled, and as I said, as we got the conversation started, we think about the cloud personally, right? It's where our photos go, it's where our phone settings go. We might think about it sort of peripherally from a business standpoint, but only in the sense that we all sort of assume that all enterprise technology is somehow or other going to be enabled by the cloud. but what it actually allows our company to do, whether it's across functions, whether it's between the company and its suppliers, or whether it's end-to-end in the procurement process. It's actually really impressive, and it's probably past time that we look back at that and truly give the cloud its due. So Tim, thank you so much for sharing your perspective, your point of view on this. I'm glad you could be here with us today.
Thank you. Absolutely. Anytime, Kelly.
And thank you as well to everyone for listening. Be sure to look out for our next episode of Determine Out Loud.